So now that we made it through all of the hurdles from episode 1, we are on day 3 of our road trip, and things are starting to look up from here. Today's goal is going from Savannah, Georgia, down to Fort Lauderdale. We spaced our trip out into 3 7-hour drive days so that we'd have time to breathe, especially since I was solo driving while Allie was working and fighting with her computer for power. As a recap, since this is the Buc-ee's episode, the first Buc-ee's we visited was yesterday in Florence, South Carolina. Everything was going wrong, so we were super distracted. But while we were there, we grabbed some gas. You never have to wait for a pump. There's tons of spots. We grabbed fresh brisket sandwiches and a drink, and we went on our way. But back to today, day 3. The breakfast at our hotel was about as rough as the aesthetics of this wood chips in resin table. The folks were very nice, but things that were supposed to be warm were cold. Luckily, we had a backup breakfast in mind, as our first Buc-ee's of the day was less than an hour away in Brunswick, Georgia. We arrived at 8 a.m. to this Buc-ee's on a Wednesday morning, and this was the quietest I have ever seen. In this little video, you can see the roundup area, the jerky counter, the fountain drinks, the bathrooms, some of the store, the sweets counter with all the fresh fudge, and the checkout area. There's a lot more store the other way as well. We grabbed some coffees and a better breakfast than what we had before, and there seemed to be brisket available at 8 a.m. if that's your thing. Not judging. You can see how seasonally confused I was here with gloves, jacket, and capris on, and I certainly could have used pants, but we packed very specific suitcases for travel to and from our destination versus on the boat. And I wasn't pulling out the boat bag just yet for only pants. That suitcase is huge. We picked up a mini Buc-ee here to come along with us on our travels and started posing him outside each store on the statue. He lived on our dashboard for the rest of the trip. We noticed that this location had the most colorful Buc-ee statue when we were reviewing our photos. His hat and his shirt were colored red, while the other Buc-ee's locations, they were only monochromatic. Upon doing a little bit of sleuthing online, the statues changed around 2024, so this indicated that this Georgia location was the newest Buc-ee's we visited, as it only opened in 2025. Moving along to the next Buc-ee's, this was only an hour and a half south in St. Augustine, Florida. It was still pretty chilly at this point in the day, and we weren't quite hungry again yet, but we had to stop for our photo op, and we grabbed some snacks for later. I loved these dried veggies. They were a little sweeter than expected, so Allie didn't like them much. She was expecting saltier. I would buy them again. I thought their in-house tortilla maker was pretty cool. This is the first time that we had seen one running. Our final Buc-ee's on this leg of the trip was just an hour south in Daytona Beach. We could finally take our jackets off here. Hooray! We split the brisket mac and cheese, and it was so good. Easily our favorite barbecue macaroni and cheese. We grabbed a few different jerky flavors. We grabbed teriyaki, garlic, and Korean barbecue. The Korean barbecue was our favorite of the 3. I would buy tons more of that. Our final Buc-ee's was actually on the way home after our trip on the boat. It was during our detour into the Atlanta area. By this point, we had a list of things that we wanted to grab so that we didn't have to keep them in the car for the week, and we were targeting them while we were in the store. We finally each bought a Buc-ee shirt. We've been fans for years, and we've visited other locations that just haven't gotten one yet. We picked up some squished pennies at a couple of the stores. We missed a couple stores. We'll get them. We got an extra Buc-ee for a friend. We even got a trivet for our kitchen. As for their sweets, their pralines are a delight. Their fudge is fresh and delicious, and the whole store smells like their hot candied nuts. We joked about needing a candle that smelled like a Buc-ee's, and lo and behold, they had one. But none of them really captured the whole store scent. Anyway, to round out our trip back to Florida, day 3, we had one final unplanned Panera era stop while Allie had a meeting, and we got to gawk at multiple kettles of vultures along the way. We learned this trip that vultures in groups have different names based on what they are doing. When in flight like this, they are called a kettle. When resting in trees, they are a committee. And when they are feeding on the ground, they are called a wake. We've seen kettles like this while driving through Florida on a previous trip, and it's just insane how many there actually are. We've seen small kettles in Rhode Island, but we haven't seen thousands like this. We didn't have the video camera going, and our dash cam is very low quality. We set it up after seeing these first few, but of course there were no more kettles after we set up the camera. It looked like they were above huge landfills on the side of the road. So that was awesome to see. We had no evening plans, so we grabbed a pizza and headed back to our last hotel room on land. We did our manicures for the boat and were able to watch planes departing from the Fort Lauderdale airport from the back window. We stopped at Fort Lauderdale because it saved a little bit of money, and we didn't mind a drive in the morning towards Miami to park at the port. We got our last full night's rest that we would have in a whole week. On the next episode, we're finally making it down to our destination, the Port of Miami. We park at the port, and here we will board the 25th anniversary of the Rock Boat. This will be our third boat. This is a music cruise hosted by Sister Hazel with a bunch of other artists on board. I'm excited to dive into showing you how these 6-man charter boats work and the fun that we get into on the boat and on our port days. Here is a preview picture of what we will be digging into in case you are curious how the Rock Boat runs. And we will eventually go into how other 6th man boats are run as well. We've taken a Chefs Making Waves cruise, and we will be taking the Sublime Reef Madness cruise later this year. But you'll see the official schedule here, how we highlight it. You'll see a piece of swag. We'll go over theme nights and the daily communications that you receive in your cabin. Please like and subscribe. Thanks!